Hi, I'm Brad, and I know I'm pretty late releasing this kind of video, but who cares? So a week ago, CES happened. Or I guess by this point, a week ago, CES was already over. But I'm making the video now because there's wasn't really too many things there that I thought was interesting. I remember making my last video, my last big video on this channel, was kind of talking about how I was talking to people and people were just kind of feeling that, yeah, CES was just a thing that XR people was going to go to for networking, but no one expected that anything interesting would be there in general. And yeah, I can confirm that was definitely the case. In fact, after talking to a lot of people there, they were questioning if they should actually go to CES the following year, next year. That's how bad it kind of was. But I still went there anyway, and I did check out some things that I think might have been kind of notable, and at least worth enough for me to talk about. Now, I didn't get to try everything because a couple things. One, CS is a big show. There was a lot of stuff that I tried in previous years or previous times I didn't feel the need to retry again, or it was just flat out boring and I didn't care to wait in line for a booth. Before I get into that, I do want to shout out my secondary channel I'm working on, which is a little more vloggy. This channel I like to sort of relegate bigger projects that won't hurt me if I make a video and publish it for the algorithm purposes. But that second channel, I'm just gonna like post whatever I feel like, basically. Obviously, a lot of that stuff could be VR, and it will be VR for the heavy reasons. But yeah, just check that out if you're interested in more Brad. Weirdo. Now, the first big thing that was at the event wasn't really at the event in any big way. So Sony announced a partnership with Siemens and that word. And well, anyway, it's not even a consumer device. I know when you hear Sony, you think PlayStation, PSVR 2, and it's totally disconnected from that. Not for consumers, purely for executive use cases. And the biggest idea that they had was 3D modeling in an AR VR space. In fact, they even called the headset a spatial content creation device. So if you didn't think that spatial computing term was going to catch on, well, so yeah, it's again very focused on people who want to do 3D modeling in a AR VR space. Very good for, like, for example, a lot of people use Vario headsets to design cars and get a good view of what it's like to be in a car before it goes to mass production. Some of those big car companies like Mercedes, for example, it's a lot of that same target market they're going for. And the interesting thing about it is it has 4K per eye MicroOLED displays made by, of course, Sony. An important thing while we know about the displays per eye thing, a lot of people think that Sony's using the exact same displays as the ones in the Vision Pro for their headset. And it's not likely that at all, in fact. So while Sony is making the displays for the Apple Vision Pro Gen 1 for now, they're using what is known as Apple's proprietary backplane, which is basically Apple designed with their custom silicon team a special backplane design that they wanted to give to Sony after they made the wafers with TSMC to actually add their OLED, micro OLED processes on top. So while they will be using the same processes in the same factories likely as Sony, it won't be the same specifications in terms of resolution and size and everything. It's more likely, in fact, that Sony would be using their 1.3 inch displays at like a 3840 by 3550-ish resolution that they kind of showed off late last year for people to get samples in the industry, rather than using what Apple's using, which is around a 1.43-ish display, which is quite larger, even though it's only like 0.1 inch, right? And it's actually a lower resolution than the display that Sony was trying to push on people last year. Makes way more sense for Sony to use that display because, again, Apple would not let anyone use their proprietary backplane design. Very unlikely. But as we go on further about the device, the most interesting things other than the displays and the fact that it's standalone is the input devices. They are not going full on with the no controller thing that Apple's doing. They have a ring that's supposed to be able to like scroll and pan things, make things bigger, and a pointer controller, which allows you to, again, have more kind of control of the 3D modeling ideas that they have. And the input devices actually looked really cool and really interesting. Like I could totally imagine using something like that. It seems like that the pointer controller has a touchpad, no joystick, which I know I have a very controversial opinion on, but I think touchpads are way more just suited for this XR idea than joysticks are, unless you really are just only targeting gaming. But I'm not, so I like touchpads. Very good design, and really showed what Sony could do if they gave a crap. Yeah. We're going to go to something that is somewhat interesting, but when I tried it, I felt a little nervous about the idea and the product. So there's a company that is owned by Panasonic. They're known as ShiftAll. And for years, they've been showing off this MeganeX, basically this glasses form factor, MicroOLED VR headset. It started out as a media reviewer like 4 or 5 years ago from Panasonic. Then they gave it to ShiftAll to become a sort of like a headset with sort of its inside out tracking. The inside out tracking never worked, so they had to put a lighthouse beacon thing on it, and it's just basically became into like a constant hell of never being able to release. And finally, when they did do a lottery in Japan to actually allow people to buy it, no one really cared because the big screen Beyond came out and kind of took all the excitement away from ShiftAll's product. And I've said in multiple videos by now, I'm very surprised how successful the big screen Beyond has gotten, even though obviously it's not insane volumes like the Quest 2 or anything, still has made quite a big splash in the VR niche community. And you can see it's actually created a market for itself because now ShiftAll has come out and said, hey, we have a new headset that we hope to release this year called the MeganeX Superlight. And they removed a lot of the jank and awful design, in my opinion, of the original MeganeX and tried to, again, make it more like a big screen Beyond, but using the same displays as that original headset, but smaller form factor, lighthouse only, getting things down. But the more interesting points about it that I was more interested in was it had adjustable IPD, unlike the Beyond, which is its biggest problem is the fact that people are getting the wrong IPD. The application they're using to scan their faces are just not right currently in a lot of the times. So a lot of RMAs are happening because if you're not in that sweet spot provided by the IPD on that big screen Beyond, you're not going to have a very good experience. So I figured, hey, this new Superlight HMD has bigger displays than the Beyond, which should make it easier generally to get a wider sweet spot. And you have an IPD adjustment, so it should be just way more acceptable for people to be able to try it out at a show floor like this and get an idea of what it's like to use. But I went over there, the CEO was there and actually gave me the demo, which was pretty neat. I got to ask him some questions and kind of get an idea of what they feel about the market in this device. But the problem is, even the fact that this does have better displays, it runs at the same resolution as Beyond, 2560 by 2560, but at a 120 hertz resolution and supports 10-bit HDR, I could not get into the sweet spot. They're using new lenses compared to last year, and I did not like last year's lenses, but this year's lenses had different issues. It was better in terms of like warping and nothing like that going on, no barrel distortion. But as much as I tried moving it, changing the IPD, changing the diopters, I could not get a fully clear image no matter how much I tried. And to be clear, it's very obvious that what they showed at the show floor was an early prototype. It was something that just felt like they just kind of scrounged it together just to get it in time for this show. And I don't know if they can improve that by the time they want to show it off again. But I think they announced in a press release that they're hoping to get this out by summer 2024, this summer. There's absolutely no way. It's frankly just not there yet. I did complain about the facial interface actually being the biggest problem. Now, obviously, this is a Japanese company, and you're going to have different sort of different faces, right? From a Western face versus an Eastern face. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that they're obviously targeting the Japanese market first, and then seeing if they can expand it to the West with different sort of changes there. But yeah, I can't comment too much on it other than the fact that I think by the time this does release, I don't know if people are going to still care because, again, you're showing off a product that's just not ready at a big event like CES. I wish the best for them, but I'm not too certain they're going to hit the mark yet. Now, the coolest thing I saw at the event, I'm just going to talk about here. And it's not something that I can really explain in terms of like an actual product. it was a component or a set of components being used for different use cases. And I can talk a lot about one, but I can't talk too much about the other. So currently, Apple Vision Pro and some other headsets like Quest Pro, PSVR 2, you're finally starting to see that big hope that we've been waiting for, where headsets just start including eye tracking, which is a very important technology for XR headsets, right? We've been waiting for this for so long, and it took way longer than it should have been. In fact, it still feels ridiculous that some headsets don't have eye tracking in this current day and age, which is very unfortunate. But every eye tracking system you see in headsets kind of all use the same system, where they have just these fast frame rate IR cameras pointed with IR lights, just to kind of get a full image of the eye and do a lot of tracking and calculations based on where it's going, where it thinks it's going to go. And they also have to train very large models to kind of filter out some of the stuff that the cameras see that are not part of the eye, like everything around your eye, for example, which actually adds latency and processing time, and you still have to run the full bandwidth of the cameras anyway. So it's a good start, but there are technologies that can improve eye tracking considerably. So I went to a private suite to try out what is known as event-based cameras from a company known as Prophecy. Now, event-based cameras work completely opposite from the current cameras you see in all eye tracking systems for XR. Instead of capturing the entire frame at a certain frame rate, they only capture changes pixel by pixel that the cameras can see. So for example, instead of just capturing the entire eyes at like a 90 hertz that you kind of see as standard in most HMDs today, they only turn on the pixels that are actually see movement in a periphery. So you can only see the pupils of your eyes, and it's a lot more smooth. It's a lot higher refresh rate, and it's continuous, uses less bandwidth, way less power. It's everything that we want. In fact, it's probably to the point where we need these cameras to get like good enough eye tracking to do stuff such as varifocal and everything past that. Way better foveated rendering. Sky's the limit. And there were two demos they showed me. Again, one I can't really talk too much about. It was basically Ultraleap was there showing off some hand tracking, improved hand tracking with event-based cameras. Because yes, you can even train hand tracking models with these. But the demo I can talk a lot about was a company called Zen Labs were there to show off how they incorporated it into their eye tracking systems. And they had two demos. One was a simple like sort of VR, put your head up to a VR system to kind of look around, and you could be able to see the icons just like Vision Pro kind of light up and stuff, which didn't seem that impressive, but being able to see the actual live input and the amount of bandwidth and processing used, which was way less than current eye tracking systems, maybe appreciate it a lot more. But the other demo they had was for a much more understandable use case for event-based cameras. So the new Meta Ray-Bans Generation 2, which allow you to look at objects and like ask AI models questions, that is something that people were pretty excited about. But for me, it's neat, but it still feels kind of gimmicky. They had something similar to that at the Zen Labs booth, where instead of just based on where your head gaze were, like if you're looking at a menu full of different text, they included the event-based cameras, which would actually be low power enough to actually run in a mobile form factor. So if you were looking at a menu or a sort of a big sheet of paper with a bunch of things, and you wanted to stare at the right thing, the exact singular tiny text thing that you want translated or focus on or ask questions about, the eye tracking cameras would be able to work in that situation. And it was a really good demo. Now, unfortunately, the AI model was not smart enough because I was kind of asking it kind of complex questions, and that's more of all of the AI than anything else. But again, it was a tiny form factor of glasses, very fast, could see my pupils again on the monitor to see how well this was working. Made me very excited. And they had their own like sort of proprietary IR LED design, very simple, very nice. It was a great demo and made me really hopeful that we'll see these systems in a new product. But again, the biggest problem that why we don't have event-based cameras in headsets or AR glasses is the cost. They are very low volume. Just like MicroOLED displays, it took a very long time, still taking a very long time to get them to consumer products. Event-based cameras are the same thing. It's starting to get better over time, but they've been mainly used in like satellites in space and stuff like that, and miniaturizing them to get smaller. there hasn't been a use case for consumers to use them until XR has gotten more popular. So yeah, I want them. I want them now. I think I should end the video with a stinker. But before I do that, I do want to say that there were some other stuff at the event. The biggest booth was actually like Pimax and XReal. XReal's sort of improving their things over time. They're kind of the most popular sort of media viewer AR glasses you have. They did some 6DOF stuff, and it was interesting. It had hand tracking stuff, but for me, even though it's cheaper, you're so limited by FOV and stuff, and I don't know. That stuff seems neat, but not for me. Pimax was there. They were showing off what was basically prototypes of a new Pimax HMD. They kind of press released it as like a early prototype of the 12K, but from what I understand, it was more like a Pimax Crystal 2 than like the full 12K with an extremely wide FOV. If you're wondering why I'm talking about this, it's because this is what I heard from people. I did not sign an NDA or try it, but yeah, they were showing off very early things. And this headset is probably even further away. No way it could release this year, for example. So not even much to talk about there. They did show off some cool stuff at their booth, like their 60 gigahertz wireless connection, which apparently uses some sort of HDMI based standard. It ran pretty well at the booth. They had to build a whole Faraday cage, sort of like this tent, so that the entire whole tons of Wi-Fi signals everywhere, right? At CES, there's tons of booth. Everyone needs Wi-Fi, and CES will charge a ton for those booths to use Wi-Fi. By the way, that's how a lot of this event can happen every year. Cannot imagine wanting to present CES due to those prices, but yes, apparently it works. They had the transmitter on the ceiling pointing down at the headset, so people were impressed. It ran at like a 72 hertz though, but cool. They are still working on stuff for their Crystal and their current user base that are waiting for every feature of that headsets to come out, so good on them. But the big thing that I was, I don't want to say I was interested in trying it out. Like I wasn't excited about this. It was more something that I wanted to go to the booth to try out and prove that, yeah, we're still far away from AR glasses. And that was the TCL booth. So TCL is a large company, and they have a subsidiary called RayNeo, where they show a lot of different glasses. A lot of them very similar to the XReal type glasses with birdbath and MicroOLED. Emphasis on O, because what I'm about to talk about uses MicroLED on silicon displays, which are they are extremely problematic in low volume. They're still very far away to even getting near the quality of MicroOLED. But the reason why they wanted to use this display type, MicroLED, for these certain glasses is because they were using what's known as waveguides. And waveguides are, even though they allow that extreme transparency you see in sci-fi and what you kind of need to get a social form factor, they are usually less than 1% efficient. So the idea to use these kind of waveguides, you require a display that can get extremely bright. And that's where MicroLEDs are kind of seen as the perfect technology that needs to be perfected before AR glasses get like mainstream, for example, because MicroLEDs are very similar to MicroOLEDs, except they do not burn out as fast. So you can drive the brightness higher, you can drive the voltage higher, and kind of overwhelm that low optical efficiency that we have with waveguides and other displays. But no waveguide I've seen to this point has ever been what I deemed as consumer ready. They usually add a lot of just visual issues, like maybe they ruin some of the color, or like they add rainbows to the image. And I've never liked AR glasses because of them trying to use waveguides, right? I want a good image if I'm putting something on my face. And when I saw TCL was trying to push this consumer-ready waveguide MicroLED glasses to consumers at the event, I was like, okay, I got to go to this event and try it. See if they've figured out a magical physics formula that Apple or Meta has not figured out. And of course they didn't. The image was still very bad. It was more focused to be like a HUD type glasses than anything else, like to be able to put text up on your periphery for different things. But honestly, I couldn't even notice like the clarity of the text. So the MicroLED was like a 640 by 480 resolution per eye. And that might have been okay for basic text, But by the time it got to my eyes through the waveguide, which just was not fully clear, I had trouble just reading the most basic text in boxes that they were trying to showcase at the booth. So my point is, I would personally never buy that product. I was shocked that they had it on the show floor for people to try because it was not an impressive showing. The reason why XReal does well and why even RayNeo does a lot of this micro LED with birdbath optics is because there's a use case for that. And the visual image, even though you can't go outside with them and see the visual image most of the time if it's full daylight or full sunlight, it has its like use case, right? Like the visuals are good. You lose all of that when you go to micro LED with waveguides right now. It's too niche of a reason to go that direction. So yeah. But yeah, that was pretty much my CES. There really wasn't much there for XR to begin with. It was all AI. By the time I finished going through that entire event, I felt like if I heard the word AI one more time, I was gonna vomit. In fact, I still feel that. I still feel like if I hear AI, get out of my brain. That's too much. Too much. Stop. Look, I mean, look at this thing. This AI dummy that it looks terrible, but they put the word AI in the name because they want the venture capitalists to invest, and it's oh god, just get it. Just, okay, that's my video. Negative orgasm ending. Bye.